Dave Isaac, our 97.3 ESPN.com insider, joins me right now to kind of review that series a little bit. Dave, how you doing today?
Doing all right, Josh. Thanks for having me.
So I want to first talk to you about the Flyers. They were down 3-0. They changed the goalie to Neuwirth. That seemed to kind of ignite the team. Do you think yesterday kind of like the ride of emotion came to an end, or was that an issue where the Capitals just said, listen, we know what we have to do to beat this team, and we're just going to do it?
Well, I think it was just a matter of kind of the steam running out. I mean, Steve Mason certainly didn't lose the Flyers that series. They changed the goalies, but it's not like there was a huge offensive outburst once Michael Neuwirth was put in there. I mean, the most they scored was 2 goals in a game, and they did it in Game 5 with one of them being an empty netter. So I think it just took so much out of this team just to get to the playoffs, and they put a pretty good scare into the Capitals. In terms of defensive play, I think they did very well. It's just partially that Braden Holtby is playing out of his mind, partially that the Flyers were a little bit snake-bitten, but they just didn't have the offense to get it done.
Do you think the offensive issues, I've heard suggestions. We have Steve Coates on last week. He talked about possibly Giroux being injured. We know Voracek was injured last year. Do you think the Flyers are just, maybe not at, the place they need to be health-wise to be able to make it happen?
I think that was certainly part of it. The Capitals did a pretty good job defensively against them, but, I would be surprised if Claude Giroux really was 100%, even though he said he was. Jake Voracek offered a no comment yesterday, so that kind of lends to the belief that he was hurt as well. Wayne Simmons, Braden Shen, I don't know if that extends down the line to them as well, but I would think Shane Gostisbehere might be part of that also. And you look at those 5 guys, they were the top 5 point scorers for the Flyers this season, and they just didn't have it there in the playoffs. So I certainly do think that health had something to do with the Flyers kind of running out of gas here.
We're talking with Dave Isaac, our Flyers insider for 97.3 ESPN.com. Flyers lost yesterday 1-0 to the Capitals. Moving on from here, the Flyers, obviously, they head into the offseason. They got some nice experience with the younger players like Gostisbehere to get a playoff experience, get a couple of wins under their belt. Who are some of the guys looking forward the Flyers look at and say these are guys who are definitely going to be here next year? And who are the guys you think the Flyers are saying, you know what, that guy might not be around for the long term?
Well, Ron Hextall won't admit that anybody will be here for sure next year, but I think the one guy that you can pretty much bank on is Ivan Provorov. He's still playing for the Brandon Wheat Kings in the Western Hockey League playoffs. He's another defenseman that'll come up and probably have a role here with the Flyers next year. I think that's what probably fans are most excited about at this point when you look to potential new pieces coming into the fold next year. As to who's not going to be here, I mean, there's a few names. Sam Gagne is a free agent. Wouldn't expect to see him back. Evgeny Medvedev, I wouldn't expect to see him back. R.J. Umberger has a very high percentage, I would think, of being bought out this offseason. There's a few holes here that the Flyers are going to need to fill. We'll see what they do with free agency. I don't know that they'll draft anybody that this year will be prepared enough to come into the fold next year, but it'll be interesting to see what they do over the summer for sure.
We know Ron Hextall, he had that history with the Kings organization, that the team had a very successful run when he was in the front office. Are there anything from his time with the Kings that can kind of give us an idea of what he may do this offseason?
Well, I mean, I think he's kind of said it every step along the way that he was going to preach patience and not rush young guys. So I think if the young guys are ready, they'll come up. Provorov certainly seems to be. Travis Konechny, we'll see. I think he's close. I don't know if he's, got everything that he needs right now in order to make that step, but training camp will tell part of that story also. I just don't think that we're going to see him shelling out big bucks and huge contracts with a lot of term on it.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Is it one of those situations, you just answered part of my question then, so if he doesn't go for big bucks, big free agent, does he maybe go mid-tier, maybe get another defenseman, get another couple forwards? Is that maybe what the Flyers may do, just kind of like fill a couple holes here and there?
Yeah, it'll be a Band-Aid kind of deal where, it won't have that term to it. I don't think it'll be a a defenseman. I think they already have too many of them now. I think they need more size in their lineup. I think that was pretty evident in this series when you have a superstar like Alex Ovechkin who can fire that rocket of a shot, but also just destroy everything in his path. I mean, he was hitting everything that moved. It only took half a game for him to knock Sean Couturier out. He got annoyed by the defense he was playing, sent him out of the series quick. So I think the Flyers need a couple bigger bodies, and I don't necessarily mean guys that can fight. I just mean guys that can hold their own, because they've got a lot of smaller forwards. Yeah, Claude Giroux's not the biggest guy in the world. Travis Konecny's certainly not a big guy. Matt Reed, guys like that just don't have the frame that some of these other teams have. It's not the NHL that it used to be, where it's either size or speed. A lot of teams have both now.
We're talking with Dave Isaac, our Flyers insider from 97.3 ESPN.com. You're on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig filling in for Mike Gill at the moment. Dave, goalie situation. Goalie situation has been one of the hottest topics in Philadelphia since Ron Hextall left the Flyers. Neuvirth played very, very well in 3 games. Steve Mason carried this team, though, into the playoffs, and then just to see him maybe run out of steam a little bit. What is the future for the goalies here?
I think it'll probably be something similar next year to what you saw this year. I think if you're trying to build a case to have Steve Mason take a demotion next year based off of 2 playoff games, I don't agree with that at all. He let in one of the worst goals I've ever seen, but he also got that team to the playoffs. I don't think he was the reason that they lost that series. Like I said, he have played a little bit better. Yeah, there was probably another level that he could have taken his game to in the playoffs, but he was very good. He was good enough that if he had a little bit of offense there, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal as it was made out to be. So I would expect to see the same thing that we saw this year in terms of a tandem. I would think that Mason would still be probably the number one guy. If Ron Hextall has an offer that blows him out of the water in the offseason, he's well prepared to trade one of those guys if that may be the case. I mean, he did a very unlike him thing in signing Alex Lyon, a college goalie, and burning one of the years of the 2 years off of that deal. So Alex Lyon essentially got paid this year and didn't even have to show up to Philadelphia, I don't think. I never even saw him there. So clearly, if they're willing to do that, they think highly enough of him that he's going to be part of their future. So I would still think that if nothing else happens, he would probably end up in the minors, and you'd see Mason and Neuvirth here. But it also wouldn't surprise me if somebody was desperate for a goalie and Hextall was willing to move one of his guys.
Is there one of those two that might be more appealing to other teams in the NHL, or is it kind of like a coin flip for some teams at this point?
I think it's more of a coin flip. They both have 1 year left on their deals. Every goalie in the Flyers organization, I think, right now has his contract expiring after next season, after the 16-17 season. So I think it's more of a coin flip than really looking at one guy and saying, okay, that's going to be the one that everybody's targeting for a trade.
Would you think Mason and Neuvirth will be comfortable with the same arrangement next year? Do you think either one of those guys might not want that?
No, I think they're both comfortable with it. It seemed to work for them this year, and I don't think that this playoff run changed anything for either of them.
Dave, I want to ask you about head coach Dave Hextall. I mean, if anybody deserves the Coach of the Year award, it's him. What he did with this team, they didn't look so good at the beginning of the year. The way they turned it around, especially with Gostisbehere coming up. How much credit do you think he's going to be given moving down the road? Because we know the Flyers have a history of being, shall I say, not very patient with coaches. Do you think that will change considering what Hextall did this year, that that'll maybe stick with Ron Hextall if things get worse or maybe things get rocky in year 2, 3, or 4?
Well, I think when Hextall hired Hextall, he knew that was the guy he wanted for several years. Even if the Flyers didn't make the playoffs this year, there wouldn't have been any kind of hot seat talk or anything like that. I think he does deserve a lot of credit for the way that he got this team to play, especially in the second half of the season. That was something that we heard about from his days in college, that they had some big surges in the second half of the year heading towards the postseason. So he was able to carry that over there, but he deflects a lot of that. and says that part of it, especially with the young guys like Braden Shen, who's going to be re-signed by the Flyers this offseason as a restricted free agent, and Sean Couturier, when he was healthy, both those guys taking steps forward. He said that was just natural progression of the players, and it was nothing that he did differently. But I think he does deserve a lot of credit for what went on even earlier in the year, getting Jake Voracek out of his slump. I know a lot of people think that he didn't have the season that he should have, but I think when you look at his assist totals and the way that he was playing, it was never as bad as anybody made it out to be. So I think the fact that he was able to kind of quell that right off the bat and get the young guys to play well and have the team surge from January when they were 9 points out of a playoff spot to making the postseason, I think he gets nothing but rave reviews here.
Did the Flyers making the playoffs change anything for Ron Hextall's trajectory for this team? Like, for example, was there maybe a player that he could have had maybe on the fence saying we're not sure if he's part of the future, then maybe he said definitely is now, or vice versa?
No, I mean, he's kind of stuck to his line the whole time and said that none of that changed. The biggest turning point in the year for me was when Shane Gostisbehere was on the roster, and Hextall was so committed to his plan of patience that even when Mark Streit got healthy and Shane Gostisbehere was playing awesome, he was still thinking about sending him down to the minors. So that tells you that he maybe even to a fault is sticking with his guns, that he almost sent that kid back to the minors, and he ends up being a Calder Trophy, likely going to be a finalist. We'll see in the coming days here when the NHL starts naming the finalists for these awards, but I would certainly think he's part of that group.
We've been talking with Dave G. Isaac. You follow him on Twitter at Dave G. Isaac, all one word. He's our Flyers insider at 97.3 ESPN.com. Dave, appreciate you joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.